Don't pick up the coins that fall from the ceiling, they aren't meant for you. I know how ridiculous this will sound, but I need you to pay attention. If you ever find yourself in a place like I did, quiet, mostly empty, too late at night, remember this story. I made it out, but just barely. Others weren't so lucky. What happened to me took place in one of those 24-hour laundromats, the kind that feels like it hasn't seen a full cleaning since the 90s. It was tucked into a decaying strip mall next to a long-abandoned meatpacking plant. Half the letters on the sign outside were burned out. The parking lot had more weeds than asphalt. But it was open, and my dryer at home had just gone out. I needed clean uniforms, and I didn't think much of heading out after midnight. I figured I'd throw my clothes in, scroll on my phone, zone out for an hour, and leave. Nothing unusual. When I walked in, the place was almost empty. A young woman stood quietly in the corner folding towels. Her eyes flicked toward me when I entered, but she didn't say anything. There was a guy passed out in one of those coin-operated massage chairs, earbuds in, hood over his head. The machines made their usual hum. The smell of melted plastic, detergent, and dust lingered. I loaded my stuff and settled into a plastic chair with cracked armrests. 20 minutes went by uneventfully. Then I heard a sound that didn't belong, a sharp metallic clank. I looked up and spotted a coin on the tile floor about 5 feet in front of me. A quarter. I looked around, confused. Neither of the other two had moved. No one had walked by. No coin-operated machines nearby. No ceiling tiles missing. Just a smooth, grimy ceiling with yellowed lights. Then, another clank. This time a nickel. It fell from the ceiling too, though there was no sign of how or from where. It was like they were appearing in mid-air, just above the tile, and dropping. A third one fell, then a fourth. Pennies, dimes, quarters, coins kept falling. The woman folding her laundry suddenly stiffened. She looked at the coins, then at me. Her face went pale. She didn't say a word. Just grabbed her bag and ran, leaving her perfectly folded towels behind. I shouted after her, but she was gone, the glass door swinging shut behind her. The guy in the chair didn't stir. It should have been my cue to leave too. I wish I had. But curiosity, that old demon, made me reach down and pick up one of the quarters. It was warm. Not room temperature warm, body temperature warm, like it had just been clutched in someone's hand. I dropped it almost instantly, and as it hit the floor, the atmosphere changed. The air grew heavier, denser, like trying to breathe under a thick blanket. Then I smelled something, sharp, metallic. Blood. It wasn't coming from the coin. It was in the air itself. That's when I noticed something written in black marker on the inside of the dryer glass where my clothes were spinning. It hadn't been there when I started the cycle. But now, it was clear as day. Rules if the ceiling starts dropping coins. 1. Do not touch the coins, they're offerings, not for you. 2. If you've already picked one up, do not take it outside. 3. The moment you touch one, you'll be watched. Don't acknowledge the watcher. 4. Leave the laundromat within 30 minutes or they'll assume you want to stay. 5. Never be the last person inside. Never. I reread the words again and again, willing them to be a prank. A joke? But in my gut, I knew better. I backed away from the coin I had touched. My hand tingled. I turned to the glass door to leave. It didn't open. It was locked. Not jammed, locked, like it was never meant to let me back out. Behind me, the dryers started to spin faster. The noise grew louder, distorted. Then, from the far corner of the laundromat, something moved. The guy in the massage chair suddenly sat up. His earbuds fell out, but he didn't seem to notice. His eyes were wide open and foggy, like old marbles soaked in milk. He opened his mouth, and a coin dropped out. A single silver coin that hit the tile with a ringing echo, unnatural and too long. Then, as if pulled by invisible strings, he stood and pointed at me. Behind him, from the narrow gap between the last dryer and the wall, a hand emerged. It was long and impossibly pale. Not white, pale, like skin that had never seen sunlight, stretched too thin over bone. That hand became an arm, and then the creature stepped into view. It stood at least 7 feet tall, its proportions all wrong. No eyes. Just smooth, stretched skin over where a face should be, except for the mouth. That mouth was far too wide, and it smiled with dozens of thin, coin-shaped teeth. Its arms were too long, and its legs didn't bend right. And with every step it took, a coin dropped from the ceiling, landing closer and closer to me. The man who had been in the chair, now a puppet, spoke. "She touched the silver," he said, voice hollow. "Her turn now." In a panic, I reached into my bag, grabbed a random coin, and threw it at the creature's feet. It stopped. Then, it tilted its head, almost curiously. After a long pause, it nodded once. The air grew lighter. The smell faded. The puppeted man crumpled to the floor, unconscious again. The creature turned slowly, dragging his limp body back behind the dryers. Just like that, they were gone. The doors unlocked. I left without my clothes. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I returned, broad daylight this time. The laundromat was still open, empty except for my clothes still spinning, somehow still warm. But the towels that woman left? They were burnt black, as if scorched by fire but never consumed. The marker writing was gone. I don't know what I saw. I don't want to know what happens if someone takes the coin home. I don't want to know what happens if someone is the last person inside. But if this ever happens to you, if you're in a place that feels just a little too quiet, and you hear that first clink, don't touch the coins. Don't be the last one inside. And whatever you do, never take what was never meant for you. I thought that would be the end of it. I really did. But evil doesn't just stop because you survive once. It watches. It waits. And if you've touched it, if you've been marked by it, then escaping once only delays the next invitation. That's what I've come to believe. Because a week passed, maybe 10 days, and I started to feel like things were off again. Not dramatically, just small things at first. I'd hear coins clink in my apartment when nothing had moved. I'd find loose change in places I never kept money, the freezer, the bathroom sink, under my pillow. I kept telling myself it was nothing. I wanted to believe it was nothing. But then came the night I found the penny in my mouth when I woke up. I shot out of bed gagging. It had that same heat, that same wrong warmth, like it had just come from a stranger's palm. I threw it across the room and didn't sleep after that. The next day, I went back to the laundromat. Stupid, I know. But I needed to know if it was still there, if what I'd experienced was some kind of hallucination, a fever dream wrapped in insomnia. When I got there, I knew instantly that it wasn't over. The lights inside were dimmer than they should have been, though it was just past noon. And the windows were blacked out from the inside, like they had been painted or charred. I walked in anyway. The layout was the same, but something was wrong with the air. It felt like walking into a mausoleum. Silent. Heavy. Like the walls were full of breath that had nowhere to go. My machine was still there, the one I used before. And taped to its glass, clear as day, was a single, unmarked envelope. No name. No writing. Just sealed and pulsing with that same unwelcome heat. I told myself not to touch it. I really did. But my fingers moved on their own, drawn by something deeper than curiosity, something like recognition. Inside were 7 coins. All warm. All perfectly polished. All different currencies. None of them current. None of them even familiar. I swear one had writing that moved, etched script that swam like oil on water. And inside the envelope was something else. A photograph. Blurry, black and white, but the subject was unmistakable. It was me. Not recent. Not a photo I'd taken. It was from that night, the night the coins fell. I was standing in the laundromat, holding the quarter in my hand. But behind me, looming in the shadows, was the coin-toothed creature. And its mouth wasn't closed. It was open wide. Too wide. As if it had already begun to swallow the image itself. I ran home and locked the door. I taped over the vents. I shut every window and unplugged every appliance. And for a few days, things were quiet. But I knew that wouldn't last. Because the moment you hold one of those coins, something sees you. Something claims you. And even if it lets you walk away, it always comes to collect. The real nightmare started 2 nights later. I heard someone knocking, not at my door, but from inside my walls. It wasn't frantic. It wasn't urgent. Just a steady, rhythmic knock. 5 taps, a pause. 5 more. Like a signal. I pressed my ear to the drywall and listened. Behind the sheetrock, there was breathing. Not heavy, not labored. Just slow, patient breathing, like someone lying in wait. I slept in the bathtub that night, wrapped in blankets, with the lights on. The next day, my reflection in the microwave looked different. I know how insane that sounds. But I saw myself in the mirror door, and my mouth was smiling even when my face wasn't. I turned to look directly at it, and the smile lingered for half a second longer before snapping into place. I stopped looking at reflections after that. I smashed the microwave. I stopped using spoons. I even stopped wearing my glasses when walking past windows. And then came the final warning. Another coin fell in my apartment. This time, it didn't just clink and roll. This one came with a voice. From the ceiling, behind the plaster and dust, something whispered. She took what wasn't hers. Now she owes. That night, I stayed awake. But sometime after 3 a.m., I must have dozed off. Because when I opened my eyes, I was no longer in my apartment. I was back in the laundromat. But this time, every machine was spinning. The place was full of people, but they weren't moving. They were seated in chairs, heads slumped, hands open in their laps. And in each open palm was a single coin. Their mouths were slightly parted. And from somewhere far back in the darkness, I could hear the rattle of something walking on all fours, its limbs too long, joints bending the wrong way. It got closer. It whispered names. Some I recognized, coworkers, neighbors. Some I didn't. And then it whispered mine. I turned to run, but I couldn't move. My legs had stiffened like stone. My palms opened against my will. A coin began to fall through the ceiling, spinning in slow motion, glowing red-hot with heat. I screamed, but no sound came out. Only silence. And a wide, grinning face lowering from the ceiling toward mine. I woke up in my bathtub, mouth full of blood. A coin pressed against my tongue. I think it's marking time. I think each coin is a countdown. A warning, but also a contract. I didn't just take something. I agreed to something. And now, every time I hear a metallic clank, I know the sound is getting closer. The last time I heard it, it came from under my bed. Before that, from the drain. One of these nights, I think it'll come from inside my mouth. So please, if you ever find yourself in a place where coins fall from nowhere, don't pick them up. Don't test the rules. Because once it sees you, once it touches you, it doesn't forget. It doesn't forgive. And it always, always collects.